Majority Leader Fenberg.
Thank you, Madam President. I move a call of the Senate.
A call of the Senate has been moved and proper sustained. Will the sergeants please close the doors, allow no senators to leave, and return those who are absent from the chambers? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Senators Bridges, Cook, Quorum, Crowder, Danielson,
Here.
Okay.
Donovan. Finberg. Fields. Foot. Gardner. Janal. Gonzalez. Hanson. Hill. Icy. Holbert. Lee.
Here.
Lundeen. Moreno. Pedersen. Priola. Rankin. Rodriguez. Scott.
Here.
Smallwood. Sonnenberg. Story. Tate. Todd. Williams. Winter. Woodward. Zenzinger. Cook. Hill. Moreno.
You know what I realized today, Andrew? When I say carpenter, it is alphabetically correct.
It is what?
What did you use? Carpenter.
right.
Cook.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful mind right there.
Love it.
It only took me 2 years to realize.
Ready to call?
Yeah, well,
Do we need Pedersen?
sounds like a question with eyes are pretty. Sounds like
Unaccounted for at the moment.
Pedersen?
I think so.
Pedersen's are only MIA?
Sure. We want to wait for Pedersen or
Oh, she is not in the building. She drives home to watch Davis. And she's on her way back. At 2:38. Yes. In response to floor please. We can't do anything. Well, we could start debate.
Well, guess I raised the call. You asked her how long? Hanson. Chris.
Hey, how far out are you? We can't even get it up. We're on 12 minutes? Okay. Cool, thanks. Yeah, no worries. We'll figure it out.
Not right now, maybe later on.
Let's step over. I just know about these texts.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the call be raised.
The motion is to raise the call. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have and the call is raised. Mr. Carpenter, please add Senator Danielson to the roll. Mr. Carpenter, please mark Senator Pedersen excused. Mr. Carpenter, please read the title. Third reading of bills, final passage. Mr. Carpenter, please read the title to SCR 001.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 1 by Senator Satan Hansen, Representative Escar Soper, submitting to the registered electors of the state of Colorado an amendment to the Colorado Constitution to repeal the requirement that the General Assembly periodically change the residential assessment rate in order to maintain the statewide proportion of residential properties compared to all other taxable property value for property tax purposes and repeal the non-residential property tax assessment rate of 29%.
Senator Hansen.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move SCR 001 on third reading and final passage.
Is there any discussion? Senator Hansen.
Thank you, Mr. President. And members, I want to thank you for a wonderful discussion on second reading of this concurrent resolution. We have a very important decision to make today. Do we continue with the current wording in our Colorado Constitution, or do we ask the voters of Colorado to make a change? In 1982, this section was put into the Colorado Constitution. Since then, residential rates have fallen from 21% down to today at 7.15. And it's also caused a massive change in the way that we do school funding in the state of Colorado. The state right now is paying approximately 65% of K-12 funding. Local districts, 35%. Without a change, that ratio will continue to shift. We'll be in a situation where the state will be looking more like 75% of that share, with local districts shrinking again down to about a quarter. The reason I'm standing here today with my co-sponsor is because I believe we need to do more investment in K-12 education. And it's clear from the economic conditions that we're in and clear from the data that we have historically that without a change to Gallagher, we will be looking at a significant cliff effect in K-12 funding. Our districts are already $560 million behind where they should be compared to 2007 levels. It's been called the negative factor. It's been called the budget stabilization factor. We can call it whatever we like. We're underinvesting in our classrooms, our teachers, and our school districts. And without a change to Gallagher, that underinvestment, it's going to double. It will double. $500 million more likely to be the shortfall without a change to our Constitution. This shortchanges our kids. This shortchanges their education, does not prepare them for the high-tech future, for the workforce of the future that we need to support our businesses, our companies as they recover from this crisis. We cannot afford to dig ourselves into a deeper hole. The other thing that I know is on people's minds, things like fire districts, hospital districts. We've worked hard in this body over the last 4 years to protect those services. Things like Senate Bill 267 that saved the rural hospitals. protecting our fire districts so that we have the coverage that people need and expect. Without a change to Gallagher, we'll have a significant impact on hospitals and fire districts, along with school districts. So today I'm standing with my colleague from Centennial to ask for your support of this concurrent resolution. We need to make adjustments. We need to make a change after 40 years. This amendment will no longer serve the state. The last thing I want to mention today is that, as promised during seconds, we have a companion bill that will soon be in front of this body that creates a moratorium on residential assessment rates, creates a freeze on those rates for both residential and non-residential, an indefinite moratorium. We think this sends a clear signal to the citizens of Colorado of what our intent is. Our intent is to stabilize our assessment rates, freeze them at the current level, allow for predictability for our school districts, our fire districts, our hospital districts, and allow us to deliver the services that this economy, that this state needs to recover, that this state needs to be successful. So we can send a clear signal today that it's time to adjust our Constitution, that we're asking the voters to participate in this. As my friends on the other side of the aisle like to mention on regular occasion, let the people have their say. I couldn't agree more in this situation. So important that we bring this in front of the voters in November. So I ask for your support of the resolution. I ask for your support of school districts. I ask for you to support hospitals, fire districts, the other special districts that provide critical services for the state of Colorado. And I ask you to support the companion piece of legislation that would freeze these rates and make sure that we have a stable property tax system so we can be successful and help Colorado recover. Thank you, colleagues.
Is there further discussion? Senator Tate.
Thank you, Mr. President. And just as an introductory remark, I would append one notable beneficiary of local taxation, and that is law enforcement. That has been a subject of a lot of today's discussion. And if you look throughout the state, law enforcement itself would be defunded to some degree. It varies county to county and to what degree law enforcement has put in place mill levies specific to their purpose, or if they're commingled in larger county budgets. But I do want to go back and emphasize a couple points from yesterday in a similar way that my colleague from Denver has, is that what we're dealing with today are not local taxes. Taxes are passed at the local level through elections of the citizens in those tasking jurisdictions to fund specific things that our local communities have asked them to fund. The Gallagher Amendment and what's in state statute deals with assessment rates, totally different thing. It is a idiosyncratic provision or law that at the state, based on statewide averages, before and after a tax is approved at a local level, can tell these jurisdictions how much of a piece of real property can be taxed in terms of its value. And that statewide average means is that Denver-based real estate, both commercial and residential, will come in and affect what our local jurisdictions in rural Colorado primarily are trying to do to fund law enforcement, fire districts, and hospitals. Now, the negative feedback loops associated with the operation of the Gallagher Amendment over 40 years have been associated with the fact that if you own a piece of business property, your tax liability is over 4 times the amount of a piece of residential property for the same value. That means we're in a situation where business property owners have an extremely high tax burden that I want to emphasize will get worse if we don't have this repeal and stabilize the situation. How does it get worse? Because in response to a statewide statistic, we pull the rug out from our local rural communities and local jurisdictions and special districts. They raise mill levies. They raise them mainly through a redundant election, meaning they've already asked the voters, hey, I want to fund this fire station. Hey, I want to fund this hospital. Things are good. Oopsies, here comes the state. Now we have to do it again. Doesn't make sense to me. But you know, the funny thing is a lot of these jurisdictions have caught on to the extreme cost of having to run a redundant election to ask the voters the same things they just asked at some previous interval, and they have floating mill levies, so they don't have to bother with that. A floating mill levy just means the same amount of taxes get paid, but because of the Gallagher Amendment, the tax liability is shifted to the business community, which is now, besides the fact of being overtaxed anyways, let's just be honest, the business community is in a precarious situation right now. And I appreciate that there's a kind of sense around here of throwing things at the wall to try to help the business community. I say, let's at a minimum stop hurting the business community. I think that's been a theme of a lot of my commentary for the last couple of days on some different legislative proposals. So to kind of confirm what my colleagues from Denver said, now is the time to stay where we are. We're in a good place. We'll be freezing assessment rates, and merely really by just repealing Gallagher, the rates are already in statute. The rates are also thoroughly under the domain of the Taxpayer Bill of Rights. But most importantly, we'll be providing stability and thus helping the helpers in our community, law enforcement, fire districts, hospital districts, and we'll be helping the job creators and small business owners throughout Colorado. Ask for an aye vote on Senate Concurrent Resolution 1. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Hill.
Gallagher's got problems. You know, its primary problem is that it takes a flat approach, a one-size-fits-all approach to a diverse state. It takes an average attempt at exceptional circumstances we have here in Colorado. And not a day goes by that someone doesn't come down to this microphone extolling the diversity we have here in Colorado. I've heard and read in many stories about the importance of diversity and warnings against building and designing to average. One of the popular ones in my family is the story in 1926, the U.S. Army designed kind of its first cockpit. And they measured a whole bunch of pilots, and they designed the cockpit to the average of all these pilots' key measurements. 1950 rolls around. After World War II, they'd had a bunch of crashes, and they thought maybe we could design better cockpits by updating our measurements of these pilots. And so they commissioned a big study, about 4,000 pilots, measured all of these average measurements, and came up with 10 metrics, from literally the length of your thumb to the distance from your eye to your ear to the length of your arm, all this stuff to design a better cockpit. What they found after they averaged out these measurements for all 4,053 pilots was there was not one single pilot that fit all 10 measurements within the average. By average, it was a range there. In fact, not only did not a single one of the 4,000 pilots hit all 10 of the average measurements, only 3% of them hit 3 measurements in total. Fascinating story. If you're having trouble sleeping or just want some more information, let me know. I'll give you all the details. It was done at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. But the reality, colleagues, and the conclusion is something I think appropriate today in our other discussion, is that there are major problems designing to average, and that's exactly what Gallagher has done. The Gallagher Amendment constricts Colorado's Constitution to average assumptions about our entire state and should be replaced for that reason. But in advocating for repealing Gallagher, the sponsors have made no secret that one of the goals is indeed to raise more money. Because this is a resolution, there is no fiscal note. But to the sponsors' credit, they have been honest, they've been transparent, they've been open about the fact that this will raise several $100 million. Colleagues, I believe now is a horrible time, in light of the COVID challenges, to be discussing a policy that will raise revenue from Coloradans, confronting the ongoing challenges right now. The proponents have argued that our current property tax structures are unfair to small business, and I agree. They are unfair to small business. But let me ask you a question, colleagues. Given the political powers that be, the budget realities we face, what confidence to those who are supporting this measure, what confidence do you have that your property tax burden is going to be reduced in future years? Colleagues, to the craft brewers, to the small businesses, to the franchises and small restaurants and fabrication shops, do you believe in the future this is going to lower your property tax burden? Unfortunately, I don't. The proponents have also argued that repealing Gallagher will balance the tax burden. I think we will balance it, but the only way to balance it is increasing the burden on citizens, on non-commercial, on residential property taxes. And colleagues, it will balance it. I think it will. And I think we are out of balance. I want to be very clear about that. But the heaviest burden is going to fall on those who are already struggling. Now, I understand there are those of you in this room who disagree about the prudence of increasing a tax burden right now. That is one of the primary divisions we face here, is a fundamentally different view about the role of government and the importance of collecting revenue and what to do with that revenue. And so maybe to address that issue, that there are those in the room who think it's very appropriate to raise more money at a time like this, I would say yes, but we need to talk about efficient tax policy as well. And there's no real disagreement among left and right economists, among left and right theorists on this, that the least efficient and the worst way to raise tax revenue is via a tax on ownership. That's what property taxes are. We can talk about VAT taxes, we can talk about sales taxes, we can talk about payroll taxes, all as a standard approach to taxing consumption, an approach that appropriately values the cost of the environment and the energy required to input it. But a tax on ownership taxes a high consumption property in Cherry Hills just like it taxes my 99-year-old grandmother's house. It disincentivizes conservation, it disincentivizes stewardship, and encourages using property to produce rather than using property for responsible and thoughtful ownership. Colleagues, it pushes affordable ownership farther out of reach for many folks, and it makes it harder for those who have retired to continue to live within the houses they have purchased. I think it's appropriate, I think it's important that we have a bipartisan understanding and an agreement that our unfair property taxes need to change. My contention is that it needs to be replaced, and repeal is not the right approach right now. And while we have an agreement, I do think it's unwise that we make a shotgun wedding of it in the last few days of an already extraordinary circumstance, already extraordinary session that we have had here. Whether this passes in November or not, it's not going to change the shock that will come to our system as a result of COVID this time around. It may dampen it a little bit, but it won't change it. And the only way it can truly change it, as we talked about, is by significantly increasing the amount of revenue that we collect on this front. Colleagues, I think we have a unique opportunity here of recognizing the impact of Gallagher, of Amendment 23, of Tabor, and creating unfair, unwise, inefficient funding of our school districts, of our special districts, of many of our local districts. Simply repealing Gallagher and freezing these rates, I believe, misses an opportunity for reform and for change. And colleagues, respectfully, in all deference to those who have worked hard on this, and deference to the many folks who have studied this, who have looked into it deeply, respectfully ask that we take more time on this and do a better job while there's a bipartisan agreement, that we can improve the way we assess and collect and manage our property taxes here in Colorado. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Rankin.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a couple of points. I think there's a lot of shotgun weddings going on around here. I don't think this is one of them. We did an interim committee in 2018 that I mentioned previously, and out of that committee there was a recommendation for a clean repeal of the Gallagher Amendment. We heard a lot of testimony. Fire departments were selling fire trucks, library districts were closing their doors, and you know, they were pleading with us to stabilize, not raise, but stabilize property taxes. And it's, you know, from the issue of one size fits all, and the problem with Gallagher is the word statewide is in the Constitution. The calculation couldn't be more one size fits all. That's the fundamental flaw with Gallagher. And so the calculation is based on property values throughout the state. And when residential rates in urban areas rise, the RAR, the rural assessment rate, goes down. And a district that's all residential, some of them are almost 100%, will lose 20% of their revenue. The impact on, this does not raise taxes, it stabilizes the tax base and gives local districts the ability to manage their own destiny under a stable, state-mandated environment. It's true that the legislature could lower those assessment rates in the future. And some future legislature may actually try to do that to help business, for example, because we know it's out of balance. But, you know, a separate bill is a moratorium on raising those rates. So now the counties, the special districts, can manage their own destiny. That's really what this is all about. It's very much a rural issue, but it's also true. South Metro Fire District was probably our biggest testifier in 18. The reason it kind of went away is because the predicted reset it didn't happen. It didn't happen. You know, we were looking at I think an 18% reset when we had that interim committee, and that was the motivation for having the committee. We're back there again. So this prediction of the rate going down to 5.88 based on our current forecast is almost a 20% decrease in those in residential rates if you're all residential. That means it's not a tax increase, it's a tax decrease, contributing to the K-12 budget of about $500 million. I figure we're not going to have a lot more new revenue. So that's going to flow right through to the so-called negative, now BS factor, in a couple of years. That's not a tax increase, it's a revenue decrease that the state general fund will have to replace. So the effect is very real. Certainly there's some concern that a future legislature can change those, the 29% and 7 and what will be 5.88. But that, to me, those local districts, putting the destiny and controlling their own mill levies in their own hands is more important. Thank you.
Senator Crowder.
Thank you, Mr. President. You know, I looked at this bill and I studied it, and I remember when the Gallagher passed. And I will tell you, I'm going to be voting for this. There's a reason for it. This is a rural Colorado bill. 29% of business that was originally founded on the Gallagher. And at the time that Gallagher went through, like it was reported earlier, it was 21% for residential. Now the residential is down to 7.15, but the business is still at 29. This has been a killer for business for years, since 1988 that I know of. So I really think that if you look at this, you know, what I'm looking for in this bill is the ability to reduce business property taxes from 29% down. So I think that, you know, this is going to be a heavy lift because people are concerned. You know, the opposition is going to use it. It's going to be a tax increase. It is a freeze. And I think this, if you were, I don't know if you recall back in '88 when this Gallagher went through, but it is a very contentious bill. And I think if people start seeing their property, and if legislation gets involved in raising property taxes, you will see a firestorm like you wouldn't believe, because that is the one holy grail for the citizen. So I think that if we have an opportunity to reduce this 29% for businesses, I think it's a go. And I will be a yes on this bill. Thank you. Because this is a real Colorado bill. Whoop, whoop. Jack, gotta get it wiped.
Senator Tate.
Thank you, Mr. President. I thought I'd just make one last little remark or two inspired by my good friend from El Paso County. You know, it's little story about when I became a Republican. Well, I wasn't very politically aware prior to maybe 6 years ago, too much, but I remember back in 1995 when Newt Gingrich was Speaker of the House in Washington, D.C., and at that time, I was an NPR subscriber, along with other media outlets, and I remember hearing about they're cutting money for Big Bird. Cutting money from Big Bird. They're taking away money from Big Bird. Well, you know, I like fuzzy animals. That's very alarming to me. But I started looking. You know, I'm a business guy. I started looking into, holy crap, how much money? Pardon my language, Mr. President. What do they take away from Big Bird? How much? What are they taking away? What's the cut? You know, there was no cut, folks. There was my first introduction to the concept of baseline budgeting, meaning Big Bird had been previously budgeted to get an 8% tax increase, a revenue increase, but now is only getting a 6% increase. Well, that's not a cut, folks. That's just a different forecast. And the same thing would apply here. You know, we don't know what the future is going to be in terms of valuations of property. And it's hard to say that there is a tax increase when there's not even been a reduction and we're just trying to stay where we are. And the second thing I'd point out is that in terms of productivity, the property that produces is business property. And lastly, and I know my colleague from El Paso County is very concerned about matters of the economy, I would say not, tax on property is not as critical as a tax on productivity. Thank you, colleagues, and I urge a yes vote on Senate Concurrent Resolution 1, and thank you for indulging my superfluous commentary.
Having no further discussion on SCR 001, the motion before the body is the adoption of this SCR 001. Members, this also requires a 2/3, 24 votes for final passage. And Mr. Carpenter, please add Senator Pedersen to the roll call. Are there any no votes? Mr. Minority Leader. Senators Sonnenberg, Hill, Gardner, Scott, Lundin, with 28 ayes, 6 no votes, 0 absent, 1 excuse, SCR 001 is passed. Co-sponsors, Senators Crowder, Moreno, Story, Todd, Winter, Williams, Lee, Fields, Donovan, Bridges, the Majority Leader, Danielson, Gonzalez, Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Having voted on the prevailing side, just want to make sure everyone knows I voted on the prevailing side. I move to reconsider SCR 1.
The motion before the body is a reconsideration of SCR 001. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the motion is adopted for reconsideration, and it is granted. Mr. Carpenter, please read the title to SCR 001.
Concurrent Resolution 1 by Senator Staten Hansen, Representative Escarn Soper, submitting to the registered electors of the state of Colorado an amendment to the Colorado Constitution to repeal the requirement that the General Assembly periodically change the residential assessment rate in order to maintain the statewide proportion of residential property as compared to all other taxable property value for property tax purposes, and repeal the non-residential property tax assessment rate of 29%.
Senator Tate.
Thank you, Mr. President. In a spirit of deja vu, I move Senate Concurrent Resolution 1 on third reading and final passage.
Having no further discussion, the motion before the body is the passage of SCR 001 on third reading and final passage. This does require 24 votes. Are there any no votes? Senators Sonnenberg, the Minority Leader, Scott, Lundin, Hill, Gardner, Smallwood. With 27 ayes, 7 no votes, 0 absent, 1 excuse, SCR 001 is adopted. Co-sponsors, Senators Donovan, Winter, Fields, Todd, Lee, Moreno, Story, Williams, Bridges, Gonzalez. Majority Leader. Mr. Governor, please read the title to Senate Bill co-sponsors. Senator Crowder. Mr. Governor, please read the title to SB 215.
Senate Bill 215 by Senators Moreno Donovan and Representatives Kennedy and McCluskey, concerning measures to address the affordability of health insurance for Coloradans purchasing coverage on the individual market and in connection therewith establishing an enterprise to administer a health insurance affordability fee assessed on certain health insurers and a special assessment on hospitals to fund measures to reduce consumer costs for individual health coverage plans.
Senator Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move Senate Bill 215 on third reading and final passage.
Is there any discussion? Senator Smallwood.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, colleagues. We had a good discussion about this yesterday. Sort of disappointed that we didn't see any further amendments. Disappointed that we didn't get any further clarity. Interesting, on the way home yesterday, I had a phone call from a friend who was watching or listening, who asked me, Jim, don't you get angry when you ask questions on the floor and you make these points and nobody comes to give you the details, nobody rebuts them, nobody gives you the answers to the questions that you're clearly asking? Don't you get angry? Don't you get mad at these people? My answer is, are you kidding? I don't get mad. I consider these people friends. I love these people, the ones that I know anyways. Some of them I don't know yet. Yes, I get frustrated by the policy, but I also feel like I'm, after 4 years, starting to understand politics also, which is when the state elects a governor who campaigns with a promise of creating a multi-state, single-payer health insurance system, when you vote for that, you have to assume that the party is going to support bills that lead you down that path. Our governor, Jared Polis, campaigned with a promise of creating a multi-state, single-payer health insurance system. I think that's a bad idea. Lots of people think it's a good idea, especially my friends on the other side of the aisle. So when the concept, when the bill, when the movement comes out to say, let's create a single payer system, and it gets defeated by the voters, something like 80-20, I don't think that changes people's mindset about that concept. And we heard the good senator from Commerce City come to the well to say, look, Senator from Douglas County, I get your points on we don't know where all the money's going, and we're creating this big commission, and there's a lot of problems with the bill, especially gigantic fiscal note errors in tens of millions of dollars. But you know what? I believe that healthcare is a right and that this bill is going to help somehow, some way with affordability. Therefore, forget about all the facts. I support it because of this. And that's just politics, and I get it. It doesn't make me angry, it doesn't make me dislike people. But again, the proponents of single payer realize that the citizens of Colorado did not want Colorado Care. They voted it down. Proponents aren't stupid. They're not going to just run that again, get defeated again after spending Lord knows how many thousands of dollars. In my opinion, they're really smart. And they're going to do this piecemeal. and you're going to create a PPO network that's run by the state. We already have that. We passed that bill last year. We're going to create a way for the state to purchase prescription drugs. We did that bill last year. You know, the biggest part that's missing for the state to have its single payer system? Money. State didn't have a way to get money. They didn't have a way to create this until about 5 minutes from now, when you see the vote on this. These are all of the building blocks. These are all of the foundation pieces that are needed to fulfill the governor's promise, campaign promise, of building a multi-state single-payer system. And it's not going to happen with one big bill anymore. It's not going to happen with one big ballot initiative or referred measure. Nope, it's going to happen, in my opinion, piece by piece by piece, and there's nothing that anybody here can say that will change my mind about this. This is what we're creating. Whether you intend to or not, whether you're complicit in it or not, whether you're doing it with your eyes wide open or just a pawn in the giant chess game, I have no idea. But that's what's happening. And the citizens of Colorado need to know that once all these pieces are in place, I feel strongly that this legislature will have made health insurance in our state so unaffordable that even the staunchest conservative will plead for the government to get involved and just take the whole darn thing over. Somebody please create something like, I don't know, a multi-state single-payer system that can get us out of this mess. And I don't know, it's not going to happen in a year. It's not going to happen in 2 years. But it's going to happen. This bill's part of it. And yes, I'm opposed to it. But it doesn't make me angry and it doesn't make me dislike people. We just disagree. I'm disappointed that we didn't talk about the board. I'm disappointed that we didn't have an open conversation about tens of millions of taxpayer money going to fund the health care of non-citizens. I think that's an important conversation to have. Whether you love that idea or hate that idea, I think we should talk openly about it. But we didn't. And we didn't talk about the board, and we didn't talk about where the money goes, and we didn't talk about how we're going to help the poor, and we didn't talk about the family glitch. We didn't talk about anything that the proponents said we were going to talk about in this bill, and it's disappointing to me. But the good news is, just like I promised you last year, that we'd be talking about the reinsurance concept again. Sure enough, here we are 12 months later. And what I'm telling you now is, next year or the year after, I'll be standing right here, God willing, and we're going to be having a conversation about, guess what? The unaffordability of health insurance, how it's so expensive, and how the government needs to get more involved. Because what we did in 2008 didn't fix it. We passed the Affordable Care Act in 2010, that didn't fix it. And you passed reinsurance, and that didn't fix it. Now we're passing this, and it's not going to fix it. So I'm going to be a no vote. But I'm confident that this won't be the last time we get to talk about it. So I'm encouraged by that. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Lundin.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. So you've just heard a clear exposition of what this is not. It's not a solution to the healthcare challenges that we have, the approach to solve some problems. I would like to speak, and I'll be very brief, about what this is. This is an example of an enormous policy change happening with very little dialogue, a lot of talk, but no real dialogue and change in the framing of what's going on in a time of crisis for our state that will expand the state of Colorado government apparatus by approaching $1 billion early on, and it will grow, of course, larger over time. So this is essentially, pick your metaphor. It's one more element of a runaway train. We don't have the money to solve the problem in the state budget, so we're going to create an apparatus that will go out and find money by claiming that it's collecting fees for service when in reality it's simply collecting taxes as if it's the creation of a statewide taxing district in order to draw people in, subsidize, and further expand the expense that those people are ultimately required to pay. So I just really want to be clear, and this isn't to convince my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, it's really to speak to people outside the building to make sure they understand what's going on here. In a time when the budget of the state of Colorado is being cut by $3.3 billion, 25% of the general fund, 10% give or take of the overall budget, a bill is racing through here that grows government by approaching $1 billion. Now's not the time, and this is not the way to approach the problem. I urge your opposition to Senate Bill 215.
Is there further discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of Senate Bill 215 on third reading and final passage. Are there any no votes? Mr. Minority Leader, Senators Scott, Quorum, Crowder, Hill, Cook, Tate, Gardner, Smallwood, Heisey, Priola, Woodward, Rankin, Lundin, Sonnenberg. With 19 aye votes, 15 no votes, 0 absent, and 1 excused, Senate Bill 215 is adopted. Co-sponsors, Senators Gonzalez, Rodriguez, Majority Leader Fields, Committee reports.
June 9th, 2020, Committee on Finance, African Service American Committee as following. Senate Bill 222, be referred favorably. Committee on Appropriations, June 9th, 2020, Committee on State Veterans and Military Affairs, African Service American Committee as following. Senate Bill 221, be referred to Committee of the Whole, the favorable recommendation. June 9th, 2020, Committee on Appropriations, African Service American Committee as following. Senate Bill 162, be amended as follows. As so amended, be referred to Committee of the Whole, the favorable recommendation. Recommendation placed on the consent calendar. June 9th, 2020, Committee on Appropriations, African Service American Committee as following. Senate Bill 218, be amended as follows. As so amended, be referred to Committee of the Whole, the favorable recommendation. June 9th, 2020, Committee on Appropriations, African Service American Committee as following. Senate Bill 220, be amended as follows. As so amended, be referred to Committee of the Whole, the favorable recommendation. June 9th, 2020, Committee on Appropriations, African Service American Committee as following. House Bill 1002, be referred to Committee of the Whole, the favorable recommendation. Recommendation placed on the consent calendar. June 9th, 2020, Committee on Appropriations, African Service American Committee as following. House Bill 1119, be referred to Committee of the Whole, the favorable recommendation. Recommendation placed on the consent calendar. June 9th, 2020, Committee on Appropriations, African Service American Committee as following. House Bill 1143, be referred to Committee of the Whole, the favorable recommendation. June 9th, 2020, Committee on Appropriations, African Service American Committee as following. House Bill 1184, be referred to Committee of the Whole, the favorable recommendation. Recommendation placed on the consent calendar. June 9th, 2020, Committee on Appropriations, African Service American Committee as following. House Bill 1207, be referred to Committee of the Whole, the favorable recommendation. June 9th, 2020, Committee on Appropriations, African Service American Committee as following. House Bill 1211, be referred to Committee of the Whole, the favorable recommendation. June 9th, 2020, Committee on Appropriations, African Service American Committee as following. House Bill 1218, be referred to the Committee of the Whole, the favorable recommendation. June 9th, 2020, Committee on Appropriations, African Service American Committee as following. House Bill 1219, be referred to the Committee of the Whole, the favorable recommendation. Recommendation placed on the consent calendar. June 9th, 2020, Committee on Appropriations, African Service American Committee as following. House Bill 1285, be referred to Committee of the Whole, the favorable recommendation. June 9th, 2020, Committee on Appropriations, African Service American Committee as following. House Bill 1286, be amended as follows. As so amended, be referred to Committee of the Whole, the favorable recommendation. June 9th, 2020, Committee on Appropriations, African Service American Committee as following. House Bill 1293, be referred to Committee of the Whole, the favorable recommendation. June 9th, 2020, Committee on Appropriations, African Service American Committee as following. House Bill 1336 be referred to committee of the whole. The favorable recommendation. Recommendation placed on the consent calendar June 9, 2020 Committee on Appropriations. After consideration, merits committee following. House Bill 1376 be referred to the committee of the whole with a favorable recommendation.
Consideration of House amendments to Senate bills. Mr. Carpenter, please read the title to Senate Bill 120.
Senate Bill 120 by Senator Danielson, Representative Sullivan, concerning requirements for registered apprentices.
Senator Danielson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to concur with House amendments to Senate Bill 120.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, the motion is that the Senate concur with House amendments on Senate Bill 120. Are there any no votes? This is on concurrence. With 34 ayes, 0 no, 0 absent, 1 excused, that motion is adopted. Senator Danielson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the repassage of Senate Bill 120.
Is there any discussion? Senator Hill.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I just want to remind you what this bill is. Ever since I've been here, we've been working to reduce the number of tests we put on Colorado school children. This bill actually requires not someone in public school, but private workers in Colorado to take a test. Maybe we should amend it to require House members who have spent 7 years in the House to automatically have to apply to campaign for the Senate. Maybe we should require someone who has an accounting degree after 7 years in accounting to have to apply for their CPA license. Colleagues, it's absurd. It's absurd for us to go out and tell private employees that they have to take a test. I think it's unconstitutional. I think I get it. I get the argument that, hey, we can do them a favor by just boosting their opportunities by requiring them to take a test. Colleagues, if more testing is inappropriate for Colorado school children, it is absolutely inappropriate for workers in Colorado's private economy. Ask for a no vote.
Is there further discussion? Seeing none, the motion before us is the repassage of Senate Bill 120. Are there any no votes? Senators Lundin, Heisey, Hill, quorum. Senator Heisey, I have you recorded. Crowder, the Minority Leader, Scott, Sonnenberg, Tate, Rankin, Cook, Smallwood, Gardner, Woodward, Priola. With 19 ayes, 15 no votes, 0 absent, and 1 excused, Senate Bill 120 is repassed. Co-sponsors. Senator Story.
I think we're good on consent. We'll do the consent calendar. You're good on consent?
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, we're going to pull up 2 different special orders calendars. One is a consent calendar and the other is general order or special order second reading. We are printing those off. So, Mr. President, I request a senatorial 5, and we'll get those in front of everyone to make sure folks know what we're doing.
The Senate will stand in senatorial 5. The Senate will come back to order. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, you should have the special order second reading of bills consent calendar now. It's just one page. I move that the Senate take up House Bills 1402, 1404, Senate Bill 162, House Bill 1002, 1119, 1184, and 1336 on special order second reading of bills consent calendar at the hour of 3:41 p.m.
The motion is that the Senate take up consideration of special order second reading bills consent calendar, which would include the following: House Bill 1402, House Bill 1404, Senate Bill 162, House Bill 1002, House Bill 1119, House Bill 1184, and House Bill 1336 at the hour of 1541. This does, all those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the motion is adopted. The Senate will take up those bills listed on the special order second reading bills consent calendar at the hour of 1541. Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate resolve itself into the Committee of Whole for the general consideration of general order second reading of bills consent calendar.
The motion is that the Senate resolve itself for consideration of special order second reading bills consent calendar. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the committee the Committee of the Whole will consider special order second reading bills consent calendar, and Senator Gonzalez will take the chair.
The committee will come to order. The court rule is relaxed. Mr. Carpenter, will you please read all the titles of all of the bills on the special order second reading of bills consent calendar?
House Bill 1402 by Representatives Weissman and Van Winkle and Senators Gardner and Lee concerning the non-substantive revision of statutes and Colorado Revised statutes as amended in connection therewith, amending or repealing obsolete, imperfect, and inoperative law to preserve the legislative intent, effect, and meanings of the law. House Bill 1404 by Representatives Weissman and Soper and Senators Lee and Cook concerning the continuation of the Sex Offender Management Board and in connection with delaying consideration of the recommendations of the 2019 Census Report by the Department of Regulatory Agencies until the 2021 regular session. Senate Bill 162 by Senators Rankin Moreno and Representatives Gonzalez, Gutierrez, and Ransom concerning updating Colorado statutory provisions related to foster care prevention services in the context of the Federal Family First Prevention Services Act. House Bill 1002 by Representatives McLaughlin and Bailey and Senators Zenzinger and Story concerning a statewide plan for awarding college credit for work-related experience. House Bill 1119 by Representatives Exum and Landgraf, Senators Heise and Lee concerning the authority of the state government to regulate perfluoroalkyl and polyfluoroalkyl substances. House Bill 1184 by Representatives Mateo and Pelton and Senators Heise and Donovan concerning the continuation of the Colorado Seed Act and in connection therewith implementing recommendations contained in the 2019 Census Report by the Department of Regulatory Agencies. House Bill 1336 by Representatives Michelson, Janae, and Sirota and Senators Vinberg and Heise concerning requiring the satisfactory completion of a course that includes Holocaust and genocide studies as a condition of high school graduation in public schools.
Majority Leader Fenberg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move for the passage of all the bills on the special order second reading of bills consent calendar, which includes House Bill 1402, House Bill 1404, Senate Bill 162, along with the Judiciary Committee report and the Appropriations Committee report, House Bill 1002, House Bill 1119, House Bill 1184, and House Bill 1336.
Thank you, Mr. Majority Leader. Is there any discussion on any of the committee reports on the consent calendar? The motion before the body is the adoption of all the committee reports on the special order second reading of bills consent calendar. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee reports are adopted. Is there any discussion on any of the bills on the consent calendar? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of all the bills on the special order second reading of bills consent calendar. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The bills are adopted. Majority Leader Fenberg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the committee rise and report.
Motion is to rise and report. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. We will rise and report.
Good. The Senate will come to order. Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee has had a number of bills under consideration. Will the clerk please read the report?
Mr. President, your committee holds lead reports adding stories and following task bills being second reading. The makes following recommendations are on Bill 162 as amended passed second order gross place count up for third reading and final passage. House Bill 1402, House Bill 1404, House Bill 1002, House Bill 1119, House Bill 1184, House Bill 1336 passed second reading order by place count up for third reading and final passage.
Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the report.
The motion is for the adoption of the committee of the whole report. Are there any no votes? With 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, and 1 excused, the committee of the whole report is adopted. Senate Bill 162 as amended passed on second reading, ordered and grossed and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. House Bill 1402, House Bill 1404, House Bill 1002, House Bill 1119, House Bill 1184, House Bill 1336 passed on second reading, ordered, revised, and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, you should have now a second calendar that is just over 2 pages. And there's one change, though. We're not going to be bringing up House Bill 1265. Why not? Just because. And the rest of the bills that are on your special order second reading of bills calendar are the ones that we will be bringing up. I saw the restaurant lobby take a sigh of relief out there, and that was kind of fun. So, Mr. President, I move that the Senate take up House Bills 1343, Senate Bill 213, House Bill 1347, House Bill 1290, Senate Bill 221, Senate Bill 218, Senate Bill 220, House Bill 1143, House Bills 1207, 1211, 1218, 1219, 1285, 1286, 1293, and 1376 on special orders, second reading of bills at the hour of 3:48 p.m. Nope. Yeah, 48.
The motion is that the Senate take up special order second reading of bills at the hour of 15:48. The bills consist of House Bill 1343, Senate Bill 213, House Bill 1347, House Bill 1290, Senate Bill 221, Senate Bill 218, Senate Bill 220, House Bill 1143, House Bill 1207, House Bill 1211, House Bill 1218, House Bill 1219, House Bill 1285, House Bill 1286, 1293, House Bill 1293, and House Bill 1376. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the Senate will take up special orders, second reading of bills, listing those bills at the hour of 15:48. Special order, second reading of bills. Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for consideration of special order, second reading of bills.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes having the motion is adopted. The Senate will resolve itself to the Committee of the Whole for consideration of special order, second reading of bills, and Senator Gonzalez will take the chair.
The committee will come to order. The court rule is relaxed. Will the clerk please read the titles to all the bills on the special order second reading of bills calendar?
Ooh.
Sorry, my bad, wrong page. Let's try this
We
again.
could do it that way.
That would be dope though, wouldn't it?
Let's do it.
Let's try again. The committee will come to order and the court rule is relaxed. Will the clerk please read the title to House Bill 1343?
House Bill 1343 by Representative Robertson, Senator Donovan, concerning confinement standards for eggs-laying hens whose eggs are sold.
Senator Donovan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1343.
To the bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Colleagues, a brief history on how we find ourselves voting on a bill about chickens in the final days of session. And no, this isn't a bill about our own body. It's about the fowl. Oh, so many puns. Anyways, to the bill, Senator. 1343 is the result of a story that I think we are all familiar with, which happens in Colorado, in that we hear of a ballot measure brewing in the ether. The ballot measure seems to be perhaps not totally in line with what those most impacted by it would think would be the best pathway forward. And what is also what I'd say perhaps a more recent trend in Colorado is ballot measures that will impact areas that don't have the votes. So this would be this ballot measure that was proposed would gather signatures probably in the metro areas, but it would impact the rural areas. So the egg producers came together and tried to come up with a bill that the proponents of the ballot measure would then agree to drop the ballot measure. So that's what you have with 1343 is legislation created with some animal rights advocates, as well as the egg producers working with stakeholder groups such as the grocery stores. It fits in a timeline that better works for them, and it also gives them certainty of knowing what to prepare for and when. So with that, I know that my colleague would like to also make some comments on the bill, so I cede the floor and the mic to him.
There is an amendment at the desk. Will the clerk please read the title to Amendment L003?
Amendment L003, House Bill 13.
Senator Sonnenberg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move L003. Members, I'm going to talk about the bill and the amendment itself all as one unit, because everything you heard the bill sponsor say about this bill is true. There's a ballot initiative out there. This is intended to
have the ballot initiative go away. The unfortunate part is there's some aspects in this that is not in the ballot initiative. Now, the ballot initiative is trying to make sure that we take care of animals the way we should take care of animals. The industry is actually already moving that way, and that's great. The issue with an aspect of the bill is there is an exclusionary marketing aspect to this bill, which means the retailers, grocery stores, Albertsons, King Soopers, all of those grocery stores will then only be able to buy eggs from those that are certified by the state of Colorado that meet these standards. Let me put that in a little different perspective for you. For example, what if, as a beef producer, I raise grass-fed beef, and the corn-fed beef guys decided to run an initiative or run a bill that says, this is the way we want to produce beef, and if the state would agree to allow us to raise beef this way, that this is the only beef that our retailers can buy in Colorado. Which means my grass-fed beef could not be sold at these retailers. Or flip it around. Maybe the grass-fed beef do this, and corn-fed beef can't get sold in Colorado. Or maybe we do it that East Slope beef can be sold in Colorado. And my colleague, the sponsor, her West Slope beef couldn't be done. The key here is, members, we have no place in Colorado statute to create an exclusionary contract that says that our retailers can only buy products from farmer A, B, and C that produce exactly the way Department of Colorado has determined would be the certificate. All this amendment does is takes that exclusionary contract out of the bill. So the bill addresses the concerns of the ballot initiative. It allows the extended time frames that's important to meet for these farmers. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't think we want this precedent. I would ask you to vote for this amendment. Allow this bill to pass with those restrictions so the animals are taken care of the way they need to be taken care of, because this amendment, taking this out, doesn't change the way our animals are getting taken care of. It creates an exclusive market. And that's not the way we do business. Not the way we should do business. The truth is, we'll probably end up in court if this passes. It does violate the interstate compact. Interstate commerce provisions. That's why I'm asking you to vote yes on L003. Let's keep the bill together to avert the ballot initiative, but take out the exclusive contract that'll be created by rulemaking through the Department of Ag and how animals are treated. Ask for your aye vote on L003.
Further discussion, Senator Donovan?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I certainly appreciate the comments of my colleague and the good dialogue we've had on this. The language that is in the bill is agreed upon by the egg producers. We did exclude some of the smaller egg producers so that we made that move in the bill. And the end buyer of this also thinks that this will not prevent the market from being impacted because the entire market seems to be moving in this direction of the bill and the timeline in which the bill spells out. So with due respect for my colleague, who I always appreciate his comments on ag issues, I do ask for a no vote on this amendment.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion before the body is the adoption of Amendment L003. Division has been requested. Division. Division has been requested. All those in the chamber not entitled to vote, please be seated. The motion is the adoption of Amendment L003 to House Bill 1343. All those in favor, please stand. Please be seated. There's got to be an egg-laying joke in there somewhere. All those opposed, please stand.
Please note the sponsor of the amendment is voting against it.
Hey.
Quorum, if you don't get up and speak on this bill with a couple good puns, we're fighting. Don't type.
The motion for the adoption of Amendment L003 fails. Further discussion on House Bill 1343? Seeing none, the motion is the adoption of House Bill 1343. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bill is adopted. Mr. Carpenter, will you please read the title to Senate Bill 213?
Senate Bill 213 by Senators Bridges and Puyol and Representatives Larson and Roberts concerning the authority of business license to sell alcohol beverages for consumption on the licensed premises to sell alcohol beverages for consumption off the licensed premises.
Senator Bridges.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I bring to you today a bit of a unicorn. This is the third alcohol bill this session that has had mostly broad support from folks involved in alcohol. And we all know that these bills occasionally become the most controversial under the dome. This bill will not. We have an amendment today that brings one particular group into a support position. And so I want to say thank you first to all the folks that have done such hard work on this bill to get it to this place. Here's what the bill does. Oh, that's right. Thank you. I move Senate Bill 213. There we go.
All right.
And the committee report.
Well, let's talk first about the Finance Committee report, Senator
Here we go.
Bridges.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We added an amendment. Oh, I already moved them. I moved the committee reports as well. Thank you.
Okay, there you go.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, Madam Chair, what's next?
How about you explain the committee report?
I would love to, Madam Chair. How about we start with Finance? Sweet. In Finance Committee, we accidentally made it so that producers could sell less than they could before. That was a mistake. We fixed it.
Any discussion on said committee report? Seeing none, the motion is the adoption of the Finance Committee report. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no.
No.
Ayes we could.
Aye.
The ayes have it, and the report is adopted.
Sorry. You're good.
To the bill.
No, just the one. Report, that's why I said single.
We have an amendment on the desk. Will the clerk please read the title to L009?
Amendment L009, Senate Bill 213,
Senator Zenzinger.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Amendment L009.
To the amendment.
What this amendment does is it strikes, you know what? I think I'm going to ask, would the clerk please read the full amendment?
At length.
At length.
Mr. Carpenter.
Amendment L009, Senate Bill 213 by Senator Bridges. Amend Printed Bill page 6, line 7, strike 2022 and substitute 2021.
So there you have it, folks. What this amendment does is we have a sunset provision in this bill. Originally, we thought it would take about 2 years for our restaurants to kind of get back on their feet again. What this does is it actually takes it back to just 1 year so that this provision will end in 2021 instead of 2022, and I ask for an aye vote.
Further discussion, Senator Bridges.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There's a lot of ins, a lot of outs, a lot of what have yous in this amendment, but I ask for an aye vote.
Excellent. Any further discussion?
And aye vote. On the amendment, yes, please.
Excellent. Any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of Amendment L009 to Senate Bill 213. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. No. The ayes have it, and the amendment is adopted. Senator Priola.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. It brings me great delight to bring Senate Bill 213, this liquor bill that has broad support, and we're not bitterly fighting each other with amendments. I think it strikes the right balance in helping restaurants and bars get back on their feet in the coming year, and I'm delighted to be part of the process. The idea came to me working with a gentleman I knew in Adams County who had a bar that couldn't sell any alcohol when the pandemic first started. So this will help bars and restaurants in all of our districts and help people, put people back to work. I ask for an aye vote.
Senator Zenzinger.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I also encourage an aye vote on this bill. I had numerous restaurants and bar owners in my district reach out to me during the coronavirus pandemic. They're very excited to be able to get back to business, but for some of those little small restaurants, they're not going to be able to be back at full capacity for a while, because they're small, they just don't have the ability to pack up their room, and because of that, they're just not going to really be able to get back on their feet for a little while. So this will help with that, and I definitely encourage an aye vote. Thank you.
Senator Bridges.
Thank you, Madam Chair. COVID-19 has hit our restaurants and taverns harder than just about any other industry here in Colorado. This bill will help them get back on their feet. It came from a conversation I had with an owner of the Inglewood Grand in my district who used to work actually here in the state Senate, and so she knew what she was talking about. She had a clear ask, and this to me just makes a world of sense. I again am grateful to my co-sponsors and co-prime on this bill, and to all the folks who did such great work to get this to a place where I think it is going to be well received here in the Senate. Ask for an aye vote.
Senator Fields.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a couple of questions for the bill sponsor, because at this point I am a no vote on this bill, because I'm concerned about advancing drinking and driving. We have spent a lot of time talking about law enforcement, and when you think about governing our traffic and our roads, I believe if you pick up a margarita and it has a straw in it, before you get home, you might start sipping it. So my question for the bill sponsors are, can you get double shots? How many drinks can you get? We know that it's against the law to drink and drive. But I can tell you, Moms Against Drunken Drivers have put a lot of time and decade into educating our public, do not drink and drive. And I think that this sends a very mixed message that we're now going to allow you to pick up a cocktail. You can pick up a wine from the restaurant, whatever, all the other cocktails that might be out there, with a straw in it. Who's to say that you're not going to drink and sip while you're driving? I don't think that's responsible. And I'm really concerned about the message that this says to our young people, to our adults, that we're going to allow you to sip, drink, and drive. Now, I know you're saying the bill may not cover that because it's illegal. But we know some people cross the line when it comes to not following rules. Now, I read the number of statistics and fatalities that happen when you drink and drive. It's no joke. I've seen people swerving on the road. I've seen people impaired. And I believe by allowing this, and I understand the Restaurants Association and what we're trying to do here, I think that the intent is good, and the governor put a measure in place to help them. I think it was 30 days, now it's 60 days, and now we want to put it for another year. I don't think we should be doing this. I don't think we should allow for restaurants to sell margaritas with straws or whatever they want to buy. So I would like for one of the bill sponsors to answer my question. Is there a limit in reference to how many cocktails you can buy? Can you get one of those crates and have 6 different margaritas in them? Or is it just 2? And can you ask for a double shot in them? Does it come with a straw? And what safeguards are in place to make sure that, I guess you don't have any safeguards on this because we can't legislate if someone is going to sit while they're driving, but we know that it does happen. And I'm concerned about state patrol. I'm concerned about my kids, my grandkids who are now driving and have to encounter somebody that just brought a cocktail from a restaurant and they're sipping it while they're driving. I think that's unacceptable. I think that goes against what Moms Against Drunken Drivers is all about. We're educated now. And people don't do that. And I think we're sending a very mixed message by now allowing people to do that.
Further discussion? Senator Zenzinger.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You're correct. It is still illegal to drink and drive. It's illegal if you go to the liquor store and you pick up a 24-pack of beer and take it to your car and open up that beer in your car and drive around and drink with it. Still illegal. It is illegal to go to the liquor store and to pick up bottles of wine and to take those into the car and open them up in your seat and drive around with those bottles of wine and drink them. Still illegal. But what is not illegal is to go to a restaurant, pick up a to-go order, take that to-go order home or to a park or to meet up with your significant other and have a meal together and have a drink together. Not illegal. And that's essentially what this bill is doing, is it's still allowing people to order, pick up their order, and drive away. I ask for an aye vote.
Any further discussion? Senator Bridges.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There are a lot of safeguards in this bill to make sure that the things that were previously mentioned don't happen. A sealed container will be decided by the Liquor Enforcement Division and will not be what it currently is right now in other states around this country. There are numerous safeguards in this bill. You can buy alcohol right now from liquor stores, and you drive home after you make that purchase. With this bill, you will buy alcohol from restaurants in a sealed container, similar to what you get at a liquor store, and you will drive home from that restaurant. There are protections in this bill. There are safeguards in this bill. It was very, very carefully put together. Far more safeguards in this bill than there are in the current executive order. This is a good bill, and I ask for an aye vote.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion is the adoption of Senate Bill 213. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The bill is adopted. Will the clerk please read the title to House Bill 1347?
House Bill 1347 by Representatives Young and Hawkins, Lewis, and Senators Danielson and Hansen concerning the child care licensure exemption for family child care homes.
Senator Hansen.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1347 on second reading of bills.
To the bill.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Members, this is a pretty straightforward bill that basically removes state oversight for at-home child care facilities. I don't think it's appropriate, particularly in this moment where we're going to be heavily needing these facilities as we recover as an economy, for there to be state oversight brought back in. It's currently not in place. If we don't pass 1347, the current statute would require for that oversight to be brought back. So I urge your support for 1347.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion before the body is the adoption of House Bill 1347. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bill is adopted. Mr. Carpenter, will you please read the title to House Bill 1290?
House Bill 1290 by Representative Garnett and Senator Finberg concerning the ability of an insured to use a failure to cooperate defense in an action in which the insured has made a claim under insurance coverage for an incident.
Majority Leader Finberg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1290.
To the bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a bill that has been amended pretty heavily in the House and has gotten to a place where insurers, as well as the advocates of the bill, have reached an agreement, and both are comfortable with it moving forward as is. And what it really does is make sure that people are not losing access to claims under an insurance policy simply because of a technicality, because they didn't respond to a letter or didn't return a phone call, but instead make sure that people that really should be getting coverage under their insurance policy are able to, even if there is, technically speaking, something they maybe did not respond to once. So this is a good bill. It's good for consumers, and as I said, the insurance industry is neutral and is okay with this bill.
Any further discussion on House Bill 1290? Seeing none, the motion is the adoption of House Bill 1290. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Thanks. Opposed, no? Well, I guess the ayes have it, and that bill is adopted. Will the clerk please read the title to Senate Bill 221?
Senate Bill 221 by Senators Moreno and Tate, Representatives Town and Soper, concerning banning the use of a panic defense unless a party can show its relevance to the court.
Senator Tate.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Senate Bill 221 on second reading.
To the bill.
Thank you. Colleagues, I just want to address some concerns the members of my side of the aisle have asked about this bill. We were particularly excited about House Bill 1307, but unfortunately that died in committee a few weeks ago. Thankfully, this bill has come out to replace it. Now, all I can tell my colleagues is that don't be concerned. The same quality of that bill is in this bill as well. And I know you see my name on the bill is in the second place position instead of the first place position. That doesn't mean I like the bill any less. Doesn't mean I'm advocating for it any less. It means merely that someone else decided my name should be in the second place versus the first place, for whatever reason that be. Members urge an aye vote on the bill. Thank you.
Senator Moreno. Senator Moreno.
Thank you, Madam Chair, colleagues. Good bill, vote yes.
Any further discussion? Senator Donovan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just want to take a moment because this bill was caught up in the end of session to just say thanks to the work, and I'll pay the fine, the work of Senator Bridges on this bill to get it where it was, that we were able to bring it back up today. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Donovan. Senator Zenzinger.
Thank you. Well, on behalf of my children and children everywhere who identify as LGBTQ, I urge an aye vote.
Seeing any for Senator Tate.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I guess it behooved me to make a serious comment about the bill since my colleague from Jeffco kind of moved from the levity over internal bill politics to the substance of the bill. And, you know, it is important that we remove from common law this ability for someone accused of a violent crime, including murder, to claim that they have a affirmative defense associated with being panicked because of the sexual orientation of the person they may have assaulted or killed. It's an idiosyncrasy in the law. The American Bar Association unanimously moved a resolution about 7 years ago that states eliminate this offense and this defense in common law. And I really do appreciate the governing party having the flexibility to bring this important piece of legislation back. Thank you, members.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion is the adoption of Senate Bill 221. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and that bill is adopted. Will the clerk please read the title to Senate Bill 218?
Senate Bill 218 by Senators Vinberg and Lee, concerning measures by the Department of Public Health and Environment to protect the public from certain hazardous substances.
Majority Leader Finberg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Senate Bill 218 as well as the Finance Committee report and the Appropriations Committee report.
To the Finance Committee report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In Finance Committee, we made two small amendments. Really don't significantly change the bill. One just simply adds in some descriptive words around the materials on the roads, these potentially hazardous materials on the roads. The other one states that the costs of administering the fee would be paid out of this fund to the Department of Revenue.
Any further discussion on the Finance Committee report? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of the Finance Committee report. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The report is adopted. To the Appropriations Committee report, Senator Finberg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Appropriations Committee simply appropriated the amount in the fiscal note.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion is the adoption of the Appropriations Committee report. All those in favor say aye. The ayes, any opposed? The ayes have it, and the Appropriation Committee report is adopted. To the bill, Senator Fenberg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a bill about a word that I think very few of us can pronounce, but we call them PFAS. And they take on other slightly related names as well, PFOAs, and some other similar types of chemicals that are in the same family. And these are what are referred to as forever chemicals. They are, it was originally created by the military, was then used in Teflon pans in just about every American's kitchen, and then was also used for things like waterproofing, and then eventually found its way to be used in fighting petroleum fires. And this is a chemical that served a lot of very convenient purposes and was really good at putting out fires. And we've discussed other bills around PFAS, so I think several of us are familiar with it. The problem is that these chemicals never go away. And when you use them for fighting fires, especially in training purposes, which is where a lot of the problems are, the chemicals have been known to seep into the water. And especially folks who are on well water or in certain areas where there have been fires and they've been using these chemicals, it's been found in people's bloodstreams. In fact, there's probably not a single American that doesn't have this chemical in their blood right now. It's pretty scary if you think about it. And that's not just because of the water, but there are other things, like I said, like pans and pots that have PFAS in them that have gotten into our food supply and therefore into our blood. And they virtually never leave our bodies. And we do know that they cause cancer. And this bill does not do what it, originally I think the concept was much larger. Obviously, given the circumstances, the department did a really good job at finding a compromise with some of the stakeholders who would be paying this fee to go into this fund. And they, I think, found an elegant way to not solve the problem, but to begin managing it. And what this does is it places a fee on petroleum trucks and puts that fee, that revenue from that fee, into a fund to provide grants and technical assistance to local governments and individuals that have found this chemical in their water, and also starts to put money towards filtering and putting in systems to clean up the water so people can feel confident that they can drink their water again. There's probably nothing more fundamental than having access to clean air and clean water. And it is important for us, I think, to solve this problem and to help people manage through it, because it really is putting people's lives and their health and their safety at risk. And if there's one thing everybody should have access to in the state of Colorado, in my opinion, it's clean air and clean water. And this bill begins to make sure we are fulfilling that promise, and I ask for an aye vote.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of Senate Bill 218. All those in favor say aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it, and Senate Bill 218 is adopted. Will the clerk please read the title to Senate Bill 220?
Senate Bill 220 by Senators Heising, Garcia, and Representative Soper and Young, concerning instituting a temporary freeze in the amount of legislative daily per diem rate allowed to a non-metro member of the General Assembly.
Majority Leader Fenberg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Senate Bill 220 over to the bottom of the calendar.
Is there any opposition to laying over Senate Bill 220 to the bottom of the calendar? Seeing none, Senate Bill 220 will lay over to the bottom of the special order second reading of bills calendar. Will the clerk please read the title to House Bill 1143?
House Bill 1143 by Representatives Jackson and Gonzalez Gutierrez and Senator Winter, concerning additional public health protections regarding alleged environmental violations and in connection with raising the maximum fines for air quality and water quality violations and allocating the fines to environmental mitigation projects.
Senator Winter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move for the passage of House Bill 1143 on second reading.
To the bill.
This simply brings up the fine standards for both air quality and water quality violations to the federal level. And I encourage a yes vote.
Any further discussions? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of House Bill 1143. All those in favor, get ready for it. Say aye. Sweet. Anybody opposed? There you go. House Bill 1143 is adopted. Will the clerk please read the title to House Bill 1207?
House Bill 1207 by Representatives Melton and Wilson and Senators Foote and Cook concerning the continuation of the regulation of private investigators.
Senator, do we have a sponsor?
What's this, the PR one?
Yes.
Thank you, Madam
Senator
Chair.
Foote.
We move House Bill 1215 and ask for an aye vote.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of House Bill 1207. All those in favor, say aye. All those opposed, say no. The ayes have it, and House Bill 1207 is adopted. Mr. Carpenter, please read the title to House Bill 1211.
House Bill 1211 by Representatives Valdez D. and Holtorf and Senator Rodriguez concerning the continuation of licensing of egg dealers and in connection therewith implementing the recommendations contained in 2019 Census Report by the Department of Regulatory Agencies.
Senator Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am very excited to bring you this excellent bill, and I have no excuses for you to vote no, so please pass.
Hey. Seeing no further discussion, the motion before the body is the adoption of House Bill 1211. All those in favor, lay an egg and say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. House Bill 1211 is adopted. Mr. Carpenter, please read the title to House Bill 1218.
House Bill 1218 by Representatives Buckner and Hawkins Lewis and Senator Danielson concerning continuation of the licensing of hearing providers.
Madam Chair, I move House Bill 1218, and there is no committee report.
Any further discussion on the bill? Senator Danielson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Amendment L006.
There is an amendment on the desk. Will the clerk please read the title to Amendment L006?
Amendment L006.
Senator Danielson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, I just need to offer this amendment to fix the problem that the petition clause caused in the initial bill. So I ask for your aye vote on Amendment L006. It's just a technical amendment to fix the problem of the petition clause.
Any further discussion on L006? The motion is the adoption of Amendment L006 to House Bill 1218. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and L006 is adopted. Seeing no further discussion, the motion before the body is the adoption of House Bill 1218. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and that bill is adopted. Mr. Carpenter, can you please read the title to House Bill 1219?
House Bill 1219 by Representatives Buckner and Hawkins Lewis and Senator Danielson concerning the continuation of the licensing of audiologists and in connection therewith implementing recommendations contained in the 2019 Census Report by the Department of Regulatory Agencies.
Senator Danielson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move House Bill 1219. There is no committee report.
There is an amendment on the desk. Mr. Carpenter, will you please read Amendment L007?
Amendment L007, House Bill 1219 by
Senator Danielson.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I move Amendment L007 and ask for an aye vote. This is just simply the same problem as the bill before. We need to correct the petition clause language in the initial bill. This does that, so I ask for an aye vote on Amendment L007.
Is there further discussion on Amendment L007? Seeing none, the question before the body is the adoption of L007. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the amendment is adopted. Is there further discussion on House Bill 1219? Seeing none, the question before the body is the adoption of House Bill 1219. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bill is adopted. Mr. Carpenter, please read the title to House Bill 1285.
House Bill 1285 by Representative Sullivan and Senator Foote, concerning the continuation of the Motorcycle Operator Safety Training Program and in connection therewith implementing the recommendations contained in 2019 Census report by the Department of Regulatory Agencies.
Senator Foote.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move House Bill 1285 and ask for an aye vote.
Is there further discussion on House Bill 1285? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1285. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the amendment is adopted. Or the bill is adopted, excuse me. Mr. Carpenter, please read the title of House Bill 1286.
House Bill 1286 by Representatives Garnett and Williams and Senators Story and Cook, concerning the continuation of the regulation of fantasy contest operators in connection therewith implementing the recommendations contained in the 2019 Census report by the Department of Regulatory Agencies.
Senator Story.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move House Bill 1286 and urge an aye vote.
Would you please also move the Appropriations Committee report?
And I move the Appropriations Committee report.
Is there further discussion on the Appropriations Committee report? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of the Appropriations Committee report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the report is adopted. Further discussion on House Bill 1286. Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1286. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bill is adopted. Mr. Carpenter, please read the title to House Bill 1293.
House Bill 1293 by Representatives McCluskey and Pelton and Senators Corman and Gonzalez, concerning the provision of emergency telephone service and in connection therewith establishing the 911 surcharge and amending the requirements for the emergency telephone charge and the prepaid wireless 911 charge.
Senator Coram.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move House Bill 1293.
Is there further discussion on House Bill 1293?
Members,
Senator Coram.
members, you know, when you hold this up and you dial 911, you expect a response. And in many cases, that is true. But in many cases, there is a failure. Just looking back 6 years ago, we had 2 million failures on 911 calls. Some of those are in my district. Because you're in a cell phone area, they can't identify where you're at. And yes, it does cost money, but if you are out there lying in a bar ditch and you want to call 911, you'll wish you'd spent some money. Ask for an aye vote.
Is there further discussion on House Bill 1293? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of House Bill 1293. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and House Bill 1293 is adopted. Mr. Carpenter, please read the title to House Bill 1376.
House Bill 1376 by Representatives Escar, McCluskey, and Senators Zenzinger and Rankin, concerning the modification of transportation funding mechanisms and in connection therewith repealing the requirement that a ballot issue seeking approval for the issuance of transportation revenue anticipation notice be submitted to the voters of the state at the November 2020 general election, eliminating specified scheduled general fund transfers to the state highway fund, reducing the amount of general fund money dedicated to make lease purchase agreement payments during the state fiscal years 2020, 21, and 21-22, repealing Department of Transportation rulemaking and reporting requirements related to motor vehicles used for certain types of commercial purposes and making reducing appropriations.
Senator Zenzinger.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1376. Members, this is a part of the JBC package that's coming over a little late. What this bill does is it allows us to move forward with our COPs for transportation. The payment for those COPs, however, is coming from CDOT rather than from the general fund. And this is just for the next 2 years, and then we will go back to making those COP payments out of the general fund again. I ask for an aye vote, and we do have an amendment.
You had them.
Oh, geez, sorry. I forgot. Sorry.
There is an amendment on the desk. Will the clerk please read the title to Amendment
L004 to House Bill 1376.
Amendment L004 to House Bill 1376 by Senator Zenzinger and Rankin Amendment goes bill page 3, strike lines 3 through 23.
Senator Zenzinger.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, what this amendment does is it strips away a House amendment that was added. The original bill delayed going to the ballot per the Senate Bill 1 instructions. This year, it delays it for 1 year, obviously recognizing that we are in a pandemic right now and this might not be a good time. However, the House decided to, instead of making that temporary, struck it permanently, and we are attempting to strip off that amendment here with Amendment L004.
Thank you, Senator Zenzinger. Could you move that amendment, or Senator Rankin, could you move the amendment?
The intent, we moved it, I believe.
I move Amendment L004.
Thank you, Senator Zenzinger. Senator Rankin.
Yeah, this decision by the JBC to just move it out merely preserves our options and shows our long-term commitment to transportation funding. It would still have to be voted on the ballot, of course. So the option is still there and preserves the intent of House Bill 267, SB1. So, we felt that it was important to show that commitment by leaving the option available.
Senator Winter to the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you to the good senator from Arvada and the good senator from Carbondale, who I deeply respect. This originally came from a bill I sponsored in the House, and I was part of the negotiations to get this across the aisle. And at the time, we wanted to go to the ballot right away and take away 3 tranches of the COPs to put towards bonding in addition with the general fund. At this point, when we have only 1 tranche left, and to my friends on the right, that I agree, I care so deeply about transportation and transportation money, and have been working on since I was a local elected official. At the time, we actually talked about, is even 3 tranches and some general fund money enough to go to bonding? And actually, so much more was wanted. And so I worry, when we've gotten so much out of the COPs, we only have 1 tranche left. Our friends outside of the building that are actually in charge of running these ballot initiatives and funding these ballot initiatives aren't looking for this to move forward. And I know politics is the art of what is possible, and I think actually what is possible in transportation funding is bigger than bonding off of 1 tranche of COPs. It's why I ran 239. Before the coronavirus, I was sitting down with dinner with many of you, talking about what could we do to actually fix transportation funding. So I 100% agree. The other day in committee, the good senator from Colorado Springs said, let's not take our foot off the gas pedal on transportation funding. And I 100% agree. So I agree with everything that's being said, but keeping 1 tranche of COPs to be bonded off of is so minuscule to what we need. I think we actually have, and we're so close this year to coming to a bigger solution. And I encourage you to see the art of what's possible. And this small amount of bonding is probably not what we want to ask the voters for. We should ask the voters for something bigger. And I encourage a no vote.
Any further discussion? Senator Lundeen to the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sometimes we create policy here. Sometimes we create initiatives, imperatives, provide momentum. We communicate what our priorities are. And I think that's a piece of what's going on here. This idea of something being suspended for a year, it's not as if it's present in this moment. And are there challenges as previous speaker correctly identified, yes, there are challenges, but the question is, what do we want to communicate to the people that sent us here to do a couple of key imperatives? We want to communicate, in my opinion, at least my caucus does, that the roads and bridges of Colorado are critical to us. We want to always be focusing on that. We want to be leaning into that. We want to be doing everything we possibly can. And so I think it's really important that we take this opportunity to signal, yeah, there's a lot going on out there, and we understand that, and it's challenging and it's critical. You can call it a crisis, but we're not going to take our eye off the ball. And the ball in this context, and I think there's only 2 or 3 of them that the folks of Colorado have really asked us to stay continuously focused on. The ball is the roads and bridges of the state. We know it's a problem. We know it's a crisis. We know we're going to continue to lean into it. And in this moment, we're not going to do anything with this today. But we are going to today say, yeah, we're focused on that. We're not taking our eye off that. We're leaning into that. There are challenges, but we want to get there. We're going to do that. Roads and bridges for the people of Colorado matter, matter, matter. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Who would like to go? Senator Hansen to the amendment.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And this is an important discussion. We've had it several times over the last 4 or 5 years, and was pleased to be a part of that in several iterations. Colleagues, I urge you to vote no on this amendment. We have just completed a very successful COP issuance to the market. In fact, it was so successful that we got a $111 million premium on a $500 million offer. And so I offer my congratulations to our state treasurer, Dave Young, who carefully and methodically put this into the market at the right time to get the maximum benefit for the taxpayer. And we've had great success with the COP program. That's exactly what Senate Bill 267 laid out, and it's exactly what we've been able to execute and get significant money into our infrastructure investment through CDOT investment. So I urge you to vote no on this amendment, because by going to the ballot to essentially replace those COPs, the last tranche, with trans bonds, would be to truncate that successful COP program. And we'd be asking for bonding authority without any clear way to pay for those bonds. And I think that is the essential question we have to grapple with here. We cannot borrow without revenue to back that up. I'm very much in favor of taking advantage of low interest rates in the market right now. I'm very much in favor of borrowing or using COPs, either one of those methods, to do more infrastructure investment in the state. But we have to look at the revenue that would back up those issuances. We cannot borrow without that backup, because that puts us in an even deeper hole. And we need to be straightforward and clear with our constituents, with the state of Colorado, that yes, we can take out debt instruments, COPs, bonding, but we do so only when we have a clear revenue stream to back those up. And so I think it would be a mistake to adopt this amendment. And we can always consider trans bonds in the future if we can answer that important question: how will we pay for it? With COPs, we've answered that question, and we've done it successfully under Senate Bill 267. I urge a no vote on the amendment.
Senator Rankin to the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. With all due respect to my good friend and fellow engineer from Denver, I think that's a bit of a false argument. What this does is preserve an option. It does not automatically cancel the next tranche of the COPs. In fact, we've delayed it already 1 year. We would clearly make this decision of whether to do so again. So it is not a one or the other. It merely is preserving an option. And I will point out that when we consider this, you know, the real impact of this bill is to move $150 million, well, $100 million in this bill, $124 million in this bill moves from transportation funding to the general fund to help balance. That's what this bill really is. And there are a lot of folks out there in the outside world who we ought to pay more attention to, who really believe that we should fund transportation from the general fund. We may not be able to do that now, but we might ought to commit to it at some point in the future. So when we said that we wanted to take 150 million, counting everything, out of transportation, we also wanted to send a signal to the public that we solidly support transportation. That's what this is about. It's not about replacing one for the other. It's about preserving the option and sending a signal that we care about transportation. We're not just using it for a cash fund, do one more tranche of the COPs, and that's the end. It really is almost a political signal that if we're taking money, we're preserving all options.
Pause just a moment, and then we'll have Senator Tate. Senator Tate to the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I want to just emphasize the option nature of this. I think it's important when we look at having an option to go to a bonding source of financing, we are collateralizing something different. And I think that's an important consideration in the future if we have this option on the table. Do we want to have a different source of collateralization other than what the COPs are if we move to a bonding? And I'd also suggest, in this being an option, options are good. Besides what the senator from Carbondale mentioned about making sure the citizens of Colorado know that we're prioritizing transportation, an option itself has value. And so I would argue if this amendment does not pass, we are actually creating a lower financial value legislative product versus than having this option in. I don't want to make us poor here in the legislature. Let's keep this option in. Thank you.
Further discussion on the amendment. Senator Holbert.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Do ask your aye vote on this amendment. 2 years ago, a little more than 2 years ago, we saw something to be proud of. We saw evidence of that pride this morning when nearly a unanimous vote was cast on a bill that was controversial when it was introduced. It was amended to the point to where it brought almost just one vote shy of a unanimous support. 2 years ago, we had a transportation funding bill that started with only partisan support. I was in the majority at the time. My caucus supported the bill, and at the outset, that bill had no bipartisan support. At the end of the session, it had 35 yes votes. And this was part of it, to put the bonding question on the ballot. And yes, we've had to push that out year by year. Just ask your support right now. We don't know what the future looks like. If we were here a year ago and someone would have come in and prophetically told us what would happen negatively because of COVID-19, maybe some of us would have said, gosh, the economy's going so well, we just can't believe that that would happen. Is there a way for the economy to turn around? Is there a way to fund this? We don't know right now. But why do this extra work to put this question back on the ballot, back in statute so that it can be on the ballot? I ask your consideration today, just allow to keep it there. I understand it's not going to get asked this year, but let's push it out a year and let's leave that option available to us. Ask for an aye vote on the amendment.
Further discussion. Senator Hill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Colleagues, I realize not everyone's in the room and not everyone was in the room a couple of years ago when we worked on this. But the reality is, I thought it was a good idea to push off asking voters for permission to raise this money for transportation. That was a certain member of the JBC's opinion who was in the Democrat Party. I agreed. I thought it makes sense. I frustrated some of my members on the Republican side and voted with the Democrats on this to push off asking the voters for a year. Now, this may be reason for you to support that, but you would prove me wrong by getting rid of the option to ask the voters right now. You would prove me wrong in saying, do what you think is right, put your principles over your party in that case and work together to get a better solution. You would prove the cynics wrong by removing this option. You'd prove the cynics right to suggest that there's no such thing as a good deal. Never think about the future when you make these agreements in the chamber for what makes good policy for the future, because, colleagues, there's always an opportunity to go back on it. Don't prove the cynics right. It may not be the best economic options we have, but the reality is, from a finance standpoint right now, it's a phenomenal time for Colorado to raise this money. It's a phenomenal time to ask the voters. Colleagues, I think we had a good agreement. I think we had a lot of kind of important deals made to get good transportation funding bill passed a couple of years ago. And I'm genuinely asking you to uphold your commitment on that in a time when worked with you to make that happen. So colleagues, respectfully ask peer-to-peer. There is no cost to leave this in, and there is a cost to the system, to the process, to the act of working together to get good policy done. Respectfully ask for you to support the opportunity to ask the voters this year.
Any further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, the motion for the body is the adoption of... A division has been called. The motion before the body is the adoption of Amendment L004 to House Bill 1376, and a division has been called. Okay. A division has been requested. All those in the chamber not entitled to vote, please be seated. All those in favor of Amendment 004 to HB 1376, please stand. Please be seated. All those opposed to Amendment L004 to HB 1376, please stand.
No, so you don't get counted unless it's not that.
The motion for the adoption of L004 is adopted. To the bill. Senator Zenzinger.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I respectfully ask for a yes vote on House Bill 1376.
Further discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of House Bill 1376. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The bill is adopted. Will the clerk please read the title to Senate Bill 220?
Senate Bill 220 by Senators Heisey and Garcia and Representative Soper and Young concerning instituting a temporary freeze in the amount of legislative daily per diem rate allowed to a non-metro member of the General Assembly.
Senator Heisey? Senator Heisey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Senate Bill 220 on second reading. And the Appropriations Committee report.
That is a proper motion to the report, Senator Heisey.
Okay. So the Appropriations Committee report, we are decreasing the budget by $81,000 and change. Urge you to support.
All those in favor of the adoption of the report, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
The adopt is reported. To the bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This bill has been alluded to in various discussions, including when we passed our budget here for the legislative budget, that this was kind of the one outstanding item that was an increase when we were holding everybody else to a level playing field. So it seemed only appropriate that we would hold this level as well. So I'm asking you to support freezing the non-metro per diem to the current rate for 1 year.
Is there further discussion?
Okay.
Sorry, Senator Woodward, please, to the bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senate Bill 220 is one of those chances that we can come together and all of us begin to share some of the pain that's going on outside these walls as far as the economic damages we've seen as part of the shutdown. I have some assurance that this will be a shared, one of the things that this bill does is it focuses on those folks who live outside of Metro Denver and asks them to share part of the pain. One of the assurances that I've been given and one of the reasons I'm supporting this bill is it sounds like there is a bill finally going to be introduced in the House, perhaps today, I believe it is today, that will not ask just those rural legislators, but in fact all of us here in the Senate to share in some of the pain that is going on for the people of Colorado right now. So I'm a supporter of this bill and I urge an aye vote.
Further discussion. Minority Leader Holbert.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I too rise in support of the bill and agree with the prior speaker, the senator from Loveland. When we passed the legislative appropriation bill, or when the House passed the legislative appropriation bill, we were literally in a different economic environment, a paradigm, world. And when the bill came over, it made it through committee, it passed through appropriations, it came to the Senate chamber for second reading, and we adjourned on March 14th. The changes that occurred financially for not only the people of Colorado, but specifically their legislature, were significant. And I stood here recently and asked you to support the legislative appropriation bill. One of the reasons that members of my caucus voted against it is there are two increases that current law required to be in the legislative appropriation bill. One is this, non-metro per diem. Years ago in 2007, the late great Senator Jack Tate from Steamboat Springs ran a bill to disengage non-metro per diem from the base amount that we set. It's $45, and it's been that for decades, I think since 1990, for those of us who live within 50 miles of the Capitol. For those of you who live more than 50 miles from the Capitol, your per diem is 85% of the federal rate, and that went up last year. So non-metro per diem by law is required to go up. Do you want a raise? Do you want to take more money in this economic environment? I think the answer is no. Maybe some people would say yes. But we couldn't take it out of the legislative appropriation bill because law required it to be there. We had to budget to law. This bill proposes to change law and call a timeout on that, and I think that's the right thing to do. The good senator from Loveland and I were just over in the House, and we have reassurance from the majority leader there and also the minority leader. The minority leader said that he is a prime sponsor of the bill. They're just waiting to get through, I think, a special orders calendar there. And the next thing up is the introduction of a bill to do a similar cap, timeout, on the additional salary increase. Half of the Senate will come here. Right now, half of the Senate makes $30,000 and half of the Senate makes $40,242. Those of us who were elected either first time or second time in 2018, when we were sworn in January of 2019, our salary was $40,242. Those of you who ran in 16 and now the seats that are up in 20, when you come in January 2021, everybody in this chamber will finally be at $40,242, just like everybody in the House. But these two pieces are in law. We didn't have the discretion in the legislative appropriation bill to take them out. We had to put them in, and that's why they were there. And I'm so grateful for the non-metro legislators. Senator, thank you. Mr. President, thank you. I think this is the right message to send to the people of Colorado, but unfortunately this clumsy timing of the COVID adjournment that we had and coming back, having a very different legislative appropriation bill, it pointed this out, and I'm glad that we have this bill and we can take this first step. Hopefully tomorrow, in a few days, I guess it'll have to be 2 days from now, by Thursday, hopefully we'll have that salary bill and we can discuss that piece. Ask for an aye vote. Thank you so much. Let's send the right message to the people of Colorado.
Further discussion? Seeing none, the motion for Senator Winter to the bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'm voting for this bill reluctantly because I do want to share in the pain, not of our economy, but of our state employees. And when they don't have the salary, but I also want to make it very clear, there is so much privilege to be able to say, I can come down here for 4 months out of the year and take a time out from my other work. So probably a lot of you don't know, but my other job when I'm not in this building is primarily recruiting women, and especially women of color, to run for office. And I have sat with women that would make this space better who have been in tears, who can't run because they can't take the pay cut. And when we talk about our democracy, and we need a diversity of voices down here, when we have people outside saying Black Lives Matter, and we know Black people make less, it is a harder decision for them to make a decision to run for office. When we decide on policies of what helps single mothers, and we have one single mother in the entire legislature, when we talk about policies with daycare, and we don't have very many moms because you can't afford to do it, when we talk about policies regarding TANF, and no one in this building is on TANF, When we talk about frontline workers who make minimum wage and we don't have, and we're setting those policies, and we don't have someone that's a frontline worker in this body making these decisions, it's a problem. And I have spent 15 years trying to diversify who can run for office. And you know what? In Colorado, we're doing pretty well, and we're still not doing good enough. We're still not at parity for women running for office. We still don't have enough people of color represented. We still don't have enough LGBTQ represented. And one of the reasons is that we continue to say, we are a citizen legislature, we should make very little money. And you know, who's gonna hire me? Who's gonna hire me and say, it is absolutely fine, Faith Winter, that you go down to the Capitol from January until May, and you work 80 hours a week and you give your heart and soul, but our job will be here. That's pretty privileged jobs that we have. It is literally the hardest part of my job is affording to do this. I do contract work when I'm not in session. And you know what? I have less time this year because of the coronavirus to do contract work. And because of the work I do, it's harder to get those jobs. I'm losing money because of the coronavirus right now. I'm worried about paying my mortgage right now. And I care about making sure that this building is accessible. And that's not just accessible to people coming down and testifying, but it's accessible for people sitting in these seats. And when we keep our salaries low and our per diem low because we want to take on being public servants, you're actually being exclusionary. So I will vote for this because I stand with state employees who aren't going to see a raise. I will vote for this because there's economic pain across the state, but it's not like every time we gave state employees a raise, we gave ourselves a raise. Because you know why? The minute you do, you get all the mail against you. In my last race, both my opponent and I got mail against us for taking that vote. So I want to have this conversation about what it means to elect people that are actually representative. How do we make it possible to actually have a frontline grocery store worker that can serve here and make those decisions? How do we make it possible for a single mom to serve here and make those decisions? So I will be a yes vote to stand with state workers, but know that fundamentally, we need to be professionals. We need to make this room accessible in so many ways.
Any further discussion on Senate Bill? President Garcia.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'll be very brief. I think this is I echo some of the concerns my good colleague from Westminster just highlighted. But I also feel like in the midst of where we are, this is an acceptable standard, and just want you to know I support and would encourage you to support Senate Bill 220.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion in front of the body is the adoption of Senate Bill 220. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it, and that bill is adopted. Majority Leader Finberg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the committee rise and report.
The motion before the committee is to rise and report. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. The ayes have it, and the committee will rise and report.
The committee has met and had a number of bills under consideration. Will the best reading clerk in the business please read the report? I think is the standard language.
The Senate will come back to order. Senator Donovan.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee has met and had a number of bills under consideration. Will the most excellent clerk please read the report?
Mr. President, your committee of the whole begs leave report is out of consideration the following test bills, being second reading thereof, and makes the following recommendations thereon. Senate Bill 213 is amended. Senate Bill 221. Senate Bill 218 is amended. Senate Bill 220 is amended. Passed second order and goes to place the calendar for third reading and final passage. House Bill 1343, House Bill 1347, House Bill 1290, House Bill 1143, House Bill 1207, House Bill 1211, House Bill 1218 is amended. House Bill 1219 is amended. House Bill 1285, House Bill 1286 is amended. House Bill 1293, House Bill 1376 is amended. Passed second order revised place the calendar for third reading and final passage.
Senator Donovan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of that report.
The motion is for the body. The motion before the body is the adoption of the committee of the whole report. Are there any no votes? With 34 ayes, 0 no, 0 absent, and 1 excuse, the committee of the whole report is adopted. Senate Bill 213 as amended, Senate Bill 221, Senate Bill 218 as amended, Senate Bill 220 as amended, passed on second reading, order and gross place on the calendar for third reading and final passage. House Bill 1343, House Bill 1347, House Bill 1290, House Bill 1143, House Bill 1207, House Bill 211, House Bill 1218 as amended, House Bill 1219 as amended, House Bill 1285, House Bill 1286 as amended, House Bill 1293, House Bill 1376 is amended, passed on second reading, order revised and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. House request for conference committees in response to a request from the House for a conference committee on House Bill 1360. The Senate conferees are as follows. Senators Moreno, Chair, Zenzinger, and Rankin on the first conference committee on House Bill 1360. Senator Zenzinger.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request that the Conference Committee on House Bill 1360 be given permission to go beyond the scope of differences between the two houses.
The motion before the body is to grant permission to the conferees on the first conference committee on House Bill 1360 to go beyond the scope of the differences between the two chambers. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and permission is granted. In response to a request from the House for a conference committee on House Bill 1384, the Senate conferees are Senators Moreno, Chair, Zenzinger, and Rankin on the first conference committee on House Bill 1384. Senator Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request that the Conference Committee on House Bill 1384 be given permission to go beyond the scope of differences between the two houses.
The motion before the body is to grant permission to the conferees on the first conference committee to go on House Bill 1384 to go beyond the scope of differences between the two chambers. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and permission is granted. Introduction of bills.
Senate Bill 223 by Senators Hansen and Tate concerning a moratorium on changing a ratio of valuation for assessment for any class of property for property taxation that is contingent on the repeal of related constitutional provisions.
Finance.
House Bill 1017 by Representatives Harrington Kennedy and Senators Donovan and Priola concerning treatment of individuals with substance use disorders who come into contact with the criminal justice system.
State Veterans and Military Affairs.
House Bill 1053 by Representatives Sirota and Wilson and Senators Story and Pedersen concerning measures to support the early childhood educator workforce.
State Veterans and Military Affairs.
House Bill 1065 by Representatives Kennedy and Harrington, Senators Pedersen and Priola concerning the use of measures that do not involve Schedule I controlled substances to reduce the harm caused by substance use disorders.
State Veterans and Military Affairs.
House Bill 1085 by Representatives Kennedy and Harrington and Senators Winter and Priola concerning the prevention of substance use disorders in connection therewith, making an appropriation.
State Veterans and Military Affairs.
House Bill 1200 by Representatives Tatone and Weissman, Senator Story concerning the continuation of the HOA Information and Resource Center and in connection therewith implementing recommendations contained in the 2019 Sunset Report by the Department of Regulatory Agencies.
Finance.
House Bill 1213 by Representatives Young and Pelton, Senators Rodriguez and Sonnenberg concerning the continuation of the Department of Agriculture's regulatory functions related with persons who work with agricultural projects in connection therewith, implementing recommendations contained in the 2019 Census Report by the Department of Regulatory Agencies concerning the Commodity Handler Act and the Farm Products Act.
Finance.
House Bill 1296 by Representatives Michaelson, Janae, and Soper, and Senators Gonzalez and Quorum concerning changing the statute of limitations applicable to civil actions alleging sexual misconduct for which the statute of limitations has not yet run as of January 1st, 2021.
State Veterans and Military Affairs.
House Bill 1312 by Representatives Michaelson, Janae, and Tatone, and Senators Todd and Heisey concerning behavioral health training requirements for educator licensure.
Finance.
House Bill 1403 by Representatives Robinson, Catlin, and Senators Donovan and Sonnenberg concerning the funding of Colorado Water Conservation Board projects in connection with making an appropriation.
State Veterans and Military Affairs.
House Bill 1407 by Representatives Skip and Basling, Senators Story and Zinzinger concerning temporarily allowing a Colorado institution of higher education to determine whether to require a national assessment test score as an eligibility criterion for admission for first-time freshman students who graduate from high school in 2021.
State Veterans and Military Affairs.
House Bill 1408 by Representatives Robertson, Valdez, and Senators Story and Sonnenberg concerning the appropriation for controlled maintenance projects, including controlled maintenance projects that are capital renewal projects of any proceeds from the Senate Bill 17267 lease purchase agreement that will be executed in the state fiscal year 2019-20 that are credited to the Capital Construction Fund as a result of House Bill 2013-77.
Finance.
House Bill 1409 by Representatives Benavides and Garnett and Senators Fields and Gonzalez concerning the Department of Public Health and Environment inspections of penal institutions.
State Veterans and Military Affairs.
House Bill 1410 by Representatives Gonzalez, Gutierrez, and Exum and Senators Gonzalez and Zinzinger concerning assistance for individuals facing a housing-related hardship due to the COVID-19 pandemic and in connection therewith transferring money received from the federal government pursuant to the CARES Act to the Eviction Legal Defense Fund and the Housing Development Grant Fund to provide such assistance and making an appropriation.
State Veterans and Military Affairs.
House Bill 1411 by Representatives Michaelson, Janae, and Kraft, and Senators Pedersen and Fields concerning the allocation of money the state received from the Federal Coronavirus Relief Fund for behavioral health services.
State Veterans and Military Affairs.
House Bill 1412 by Representatives Kennedy and Cutter and Senators Story and Zinzinger concerning assistance for individuals unable to pay their utility bills due to the economic hardship caused by the COVID-19 pandemic and in connection therewith, transferring money received from the federal government pursuant to the CARES Act to the Energy Outreach Colorado Low Income Energy Assistance Fund to provide such assistance.
State Veterans and Military Affairs.
House Bill 1413 by Representatives Byrd and Cutter and Senators Zinzinger and Donovan concerning the establishment of a state and private investor-funded small business recovery loan program in connection therewith authorizing the Department of the Treasury to obtain the state share of funding for the program by selling insurance premium tax credits to qualified taxpayers and authorizing the state treasurer to contract with the program manager to establish and administer the program.
Finance.
House Bill 1414 by Representatives Weissman and Tatone and Senators Foot and Pedersen concerning a prohibition against engaging in price gouging for a period following a declared disaster.
Finance.
House Bill 1415 by Representatives Harrington, Sullivan, and Senators Pedersen and Rodriguez concerning a worker's right in the workplace for conduct related to a principal's actions during a public health emergency and in connection with making an appropriation.
Finance.
House Bill 1416 by Representatives Garnett and Neville and Senators Finberg and Holbrook concerning the modification of fiscal information prepared by Legislative Council staff related to an initiated measure and in connection therewith reducing an appropriation.
Finance.
House Bill 1417 by Representatives Becker and Senator Hansen concerning the establishment of administrative conditions related to money in the general fund from the federal coronavirus relief fund that apply to an allocation established in separate legislation until the unspent money remaining in the sub-fund is transferred to the unemployment compensation fund on December 30th, 2020.
Finance.
House Bill 1418 by Representatives Becker and Senator Todd concerning the financing of public schools and in connection with making and reducing appropriations.
Finance. Announcements. Senator Zenzinger.
Senate Appropriations, we will be meeting tomorrow morning at 8:30 a.m. for a number of bills in the old Supreme Court chamber. See you there.
Any other announcements? Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, thanks for your work today. We will be ending for the day. Committees will likely meet, not just the Appropriations Committee, but likely meet tomorrow after we come to the floor. We'll likely do thirds and then break for committee for the bills that were just read across. We do have one more item that we'll be reading across this hopefully very, very soon, but we aren't going to be doing any more work on the floor. So folks do not need to be here. Mr. President, I move that the Senate recess until 5:35.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed no. The ayes have it, and the Senate will stand in recess until 17:35 today.